When the Kurdish villages were turned to smoke and ashes, the Kurds settled on the fringe of Istanbul and Ankara and began to recycle garbage. On this spring morning, the city council of Ankara decided to raise the area to the ground.
To generate images of oil infrastructures is not an aesthetic project, it is an undercover mission, Beeman says. Herzog's lessons would seem to occupy the other side of this documentary. That is, one would be aesthetic project, the other would be undercover mission. Herzog, maybe it's an aesthetic project. We are meant to be impressed, awed, and seduced by the scale of the oil disaster, its stark colors, and the dynamic visual energy of shooting flames and roiling clouds of smoke. The film paints the present as an apocalypse we are not only fated to live, but in which we apparently find comfort. Without the burning oil, social life would lose its dynamic force, its animating rationality. The narrative voice of the film, which is an alien, remember, struggles to make sense of what it sees. Can there really be such creatures for whom oil is an object of worship? But Herzog can't resist commentary. And so in parts of the film we get excerpts from Revelations, which is what we had there, from Revelations 16:18, which directs us back to the film's epigraph, attributed to Blaise Pascal, but actually an invention of Herzog's. Quote, this is the epigraph to the film, "The collapse of the stellar universe will be like creation, grandiose splendor." This seems to be the judgment of history, and thus strictly speaking outside of politics, an expression of a profound gloom about human possibility that confirms the conservative inclination of this alien metaphor, which has become an increasingly common device in recent art and film. Not, for instance, The Day the Earth Stood Still, which now tends to be about nature rather than an allegory of the Cold War. The view from an alien perspective, the making thus of a meta perspective, making it literal, is intended to allow structural truths to emerge without the intervention of morality, ethics, or political confusion. But this can often backfire. Instead of insight, a radical incommensurability between subject and object opens up, resulting in a disavowal of the human as such. In other words, a pessimistic apprehension of impending disaster, a profound sense of uncertainty and disorientation regarding human society's claim to progressive agency, and a kind of post-historical estrangement from the experience of modernity. So in other words, when you have this kind of alien metaphor, it allows you to see, it allows you to make the human alien and to try to sort of look to see how odd certain things are happening with respect to life on Earth. But it can also be such a distant space that it means that nothing can be done. And it also can tend to induce a kind of pessimism about the disaster. If only aliens can make sense of it, nothing can be done about what happens on Earth. Might it not be a potentially productive way, since what I wanted to address here is questions of representation in relationship to oil and in relationship to ecology. Might these films not, in fact, be attempts at producing ecologies without nature? Oil seems like the most basic of substances. Worries about what we might do without it seem as easily addressed as the placement of ads for wind and solar power in the pages of magazines, or shifts in public policy, and so on. If I've treated oil as something stranger, full of metaphysical mystery and subtlety, it is because it is in a very real way absent from social life, despite the fact that it is all around us in physical form, in plastics, fuels, fertilizers, and so on. In both the labor theory of value and the language of economics, the resources we depend on are, strictly speaking, without value. For capitalism, nature always comes for free. That is, it costs money to build things and to pay people to take things out of the ground, to use up nature, but the actual natural material itself has no cost. It has no value in that sense. It comes for free. It is only the cost of extracting resources, the cost of ground leases, labor, materials, which appear on ledger sheets, which is why it has proven so difficult for ecological economists to give a number to nature's contribution to economic processes. The point of such calculations is to generate changes in social behavior by making the real costs of our actions on the ecological system part of the system of value. So what ecological economists might do is try to actually come up with a number. How much does it actually cost us to get material out of the earth? What's the actual cost? What's the actual input of nature into the economy every year? But how do you cost a finite input that is essential to the operation of the whole system? What cost can you give to oil when it's finite and will disappear entirely, and yet it's required for the operations of our entire social system? Aren't oil and capitalism, in a sense, one and the same? These are questions difficult enough to properly pose, much less to answer. No grand conclusions, no mysteries solved. Black Sea Files and Lessons of Darkness draw attention to the desperate need for contemporary theory, contemporary left theory, to engage in the difficult work of making oil and other natural resources a central part of our political imaginings and strategy, and of the need to do so without the comforting ease of dreams of transcendence and salvation. Thanks.